Have you ever sat through a combat that felt forgettable? Rolling dice, taking turns, and then it's over. It's just another fight that nobody remembers. Now, imagine a battle that sticks, one where every swing of the sword, every spell cast, and every roar of the enemy makes your group lean forward. You don't need complicated rules or massive prep, just a handful of smart touches. Give your fights real goals. Use the battlefield in exciting ways. Let enemies behave like they've got a plan, not just stand there. And make sure your players care. Emotion matters. By the end of this video, you'll have a simple toolkit for turning every fight into something meaningful. Combat can be more than just rolling dice. It can feel epic every time. Hello, you beautiful humans, it's Shady, and imagine your players facing a fight where the only goal is to kill everything on the map. It quickly becomes routine. Players stop caring and the tension evaporates. Now, imagine framing the combat around a goal. Maybe they're fighting around an altar with cultists who will summon a demon in 5 rounds, or they need to escort someone to safety while dealing with goblin ambushes. This gives every action meaning. You're not just trading blows, your encounter has purpose. Little mechanical hooks like timers or side objectives instantly shift the energy. The dice rolls aren't just about damage, they're about succeeding under pressure. You can set an actual timer or use the face of a die to count down the rounds. When players see that looming threat, their energy spikes. The fight becomes urgent and players lean forward when they know there's more to the battle than just reducing hit points. Introducing objectives to your fights really helps your combat become memorable. Think about a fight that felt meaningful, not just because it was an exciting kill, but because it changed something in the story. A memorable battle does more than test a character's sword arm, it moves the plot forward. This could be a fight that interrupts what seems like a dead-end scene, then reveals a betrayal or a long-hidden secret. Maybe defeating an enemy reveals some sort of clue mid-battle, or the opponent escapes, setting the stage for a revenge-filled chase. These narrative shifts, hidden motives or unintended consequences, create engaging and meaningful beats. Mechanically, you can reinforce this by tying combat outcomes directly into the world. If an NPC escapes, it can spark a subplot. If enemies regroup, instead of going down quietly, they might return stronger or smarter. If the battlefield changes during the fight, say rubble collapses to open a tunnel or a ritual is completed, you're giving the story new direction organically and without carving it off script. Small details like a goblin crest that matches stolen city banners or an enemy whispering the hero's name can drop story hooks right into the chaos of combat. Those moments don't just spice up the action, they embed plot into the fight, making it feel important. When combat reveals something new, about people, threats, or secrets, it's no longer a combat encounter for the sake of being a combat encounter. It becomes a turning point that players remember and want to explore. Combat gets truly memorable when the enemies aren't just punching bags of hit points, but tactical performers with goals and behaviours of their own. Instead of having enemies stand shoulder to shoulder just waiting to be clobbered, give them tactics. Have them flank players to gain advantage, retreat when pressured, or focus fire on weaker characters like healers or wizards. This kind of behaviour doesn't just challenge players mechanically, it makes them feel like they're facing clever opponents, not scripted obstacles. actions. You can also shape enemy actions around their personalities and motivations. Maybe kobolds set traps and avoid direct confrontation, while ogres charge brashly to clear the path. Let them have varied roles or abilities. Mixing different types of foes like archers, spellcasters, and melee fighters creates opportunities for players to rethink their strategy each round and rewards smart play. It's also helpful to think like your enemies. What do they want? Are they defending something of value or just looking for trouble? When the enemy has a clear objective and their combat behavior reflects that, such as breaking lines to protect a ritual or retreating to warn reinforcements, the fight becomes more than just who rolled higher. It becomes a clash of wit and will. Enemies that fight smart make every task feel earned, keep the table guessing, and turn every battle into something to talk about rather than something to just grind through. If your combat takes place on a flat, unchanging battlefield, it might play out like a chore and be just as forgettable. But when the environment itself becomes a living, shifting part of the fight, every move carries weight. A dynamic battlefield can be full of hazards or opportunities. Maybe the room begins to flood, compelling players to stay on high ground or get washed away. Maybe ancient beams groan before collapsing, or magical glyphs flare up with unpredictable effects. When players can interact with the map, crumbling pillars to topple, chandeliers to swing from, precarious ledges to maneuver across, they suddenly see every square as choice, not just a place to stand. These mechanics do more than just complicate combat, they invite creativity. Players might shove enemies into swamps or lure them beneath cracking balconies, or they might weave around hazards, turning dangers into improvised tools. I once ran an encounter that involved crossing a chasm in the Underdark using a rope bridge. Halfway across the bridge, a mimic had taken the shape of one of the planks and some of the ropes holding the bridge together. The players started to cross and, of course, got stuck on the bridge about halfway through. Then a roper on the ceiling showed up. As the party killed the mimic, the bridge collapsed because there was nothing holding both ends together anymore. They were able to cross with the help of some characters with a fly speed, and they were engaged throughout the encounter because they were very aware of the stakes. So don't treat scenery as just background. Use it, let it shift, break, and offer tactical twists. That's how battles become dynamic, from standoffs to memorable experiences. Combat turns unforgettable when it strikes at what your characters and players care about. A battle drawn in blood and emotion sticks around in memory more than a fight with generic Goblin Horde number 3. Think about what's on the line. Is it just experience points and loot, or is it something deeper? A friend's life, a moral line being crossed. When the stakes tap into personal or group values, combat stops being a chore and starts being urgent. You can reinforce this emotional weight with consequences that matter but don't end in character death. Maybe failing to protect a villager means someone important to one of the characters suffers, or the MacGuffin is taken by the enemies as they retreat. These stakes don't just raise tension, they help players see that their actions matter in the story. When characters risk more than their hit points, players lean into the scene. They care, and that's how combat becomes memorable. Not just another roll, but a moment that sticks around in your players' memories. When your player characters level up, it's not just about going through the motions. It's a moment of growth in the story. A well-crafted post-level up encounter turns that milestone into an opportunity for celebration and challenge. New abilities can be exciting, but only if players get the chance to use them. That's where your next combat steps in. Design the fight to highlight their new abilities. Maybe enemies are designed to be pushed back strategically, or navigating the terrain requires clever use of some newly learned spells or skills. Let players test those new moves right away. For example, if a player has just learned a new powerful AoE spell, drop them into a room where positioning and timing really matter. If someone has just gained a new defensive ability, throw in enemies that put offensive pressure on the players. These moments aren't just mechanically rewarding, they feel earned. Balance is key. This shouldn't be too easy, but it shouldn't be a slog either. Use the encounter to nudge players into exploring their new toolkit and reward creativity along the way. When they solve the fight with creative thinking rather than brute force, that level up moment sticks with them. Level up combats are more than filler. They are a narrative and mechanical springboard that reinforces growth and elevates your game. If every fight is a titanic showdown, constantly high drama and full-on chaos, battle fatigue sets in fast. Imagine watching non-stop action movie trailers. Eventually, nothing feels special anymore. That's why pacing matters. Not every combat should feel like saving the world. Mix in short, simple fights, skirmishes that drain resources or keep players alert without burning them out. These lighter encounters act as palate cleansers. When the stakes are lower, they give players a break from dramatic tension and let them recharge. Then, when you hit that big story-shaping battle, the one with the collapsing pillars and moral dilemmas or devastating villain reveals, it lands harder. Vary your encounter build. Use a fast, minimal resource skirmish to let players breeze through, followed by a slow burn encounter that demands planning and focus. When you alternate this way, the big fights feel earned, like the season finale, not just another episode. Mixing in light and epic encounters creates a rhythm. It guides pacing, builds narrative peaks and valleys, and gives your true highlight battles the space to shine. Combat becomes unforgettable when it has layers. Meaning, story, tactics, space, emotion, and rhythm. The fights that players keep talking about aren't just well balanced, they hit something deeper. Sometimes it means giving a fight a real goal, something more than loot or experience points. Other times, it's about letting the story move through the blades. Maybe enemies fight with purpose or strategy, or the battlefield itself challenges the players to think. Then there's emotional weight, a life that can be saved, a relic to protect, legacy at stake. Pacing matters too. When not every fight is earth-shattering, the big battles land with real impact. So now I'd love to hear from you. Which combat moment has stuck with you the longest, and what made it unforgettable? If this video resonated with you, please join the Discord, link in the description below, and whilst you're down there, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more deep dives like this. And until next time, go build battles your players will never forget.